Thank you for that kind introduction. I've really enjoyed the speeches what I've heard this evening, but I apologise for being slightly late. I was in the Commons voting against the tax credits issue, which I thought was extremely important. Proud to be one of the 48 rebels who voted against the second reading of the welfare reform bill. I think it's an absolute travesty that the party at that time decided that we should abstain on that. Now listen, if people want to abstain on bills like that, perhaps they were in the wrong party. Well listen, we didn't realise that within a matter of weeks that we would have a new leader as moderate as what Jeremy Corbyn is. And you know what really excited me, apart from the fact that Jeremy's enthused that many people, hundreds of thousands of people, I was delighted to see that the Blairites, after all the campaigning, got 4.5% of the vote. And that in itself is a huge message. But I'll tell you what, on a serious note, we're looking at the trade union bill. And I just want to touch on it in a little bit more detail tonight, because it's not just about trade unionism. It really, really isn't. And I stood up in the Commons yesterday, I was delighted. I absolutely hammered Sajid David and his contribution. We had a great attack on the Secretary of State. And then the contributions were brilliant. That was the Labour Party at its best yesterday, defending the trade union movement. The contributions were fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I did tell the Commons, I said, listen, I'm the most experienced man in here with regards to the trade union bill. I've been on picket lines. I've been arrested on picket lines. I've been intimidated on picket lines. I've been assaulted on picket lines. I've been involved with the check-off system and with facility time. I met with a certification officer on numerous occasions. I've been hauled in front of him. And I've represented people in the certification office. And I've been on strike more than anybody in the Commons. And Ronnie Campbell, a good comrade of mine, was tugging at me trousers at the back. And Ronnie said, you know, I've been on strike 3 times. And somebody from the Tory bench said, well, that's not a lot. And Ronnie says it was a year each time. So that was fantastic. So we really got stuck in yesterday. But this, comrades, the trade union bill isn't just about trade unions. It's the gagging bill, part 2. The gagging bill, which went through the last Parliament, sought to silence charities and other organisations, community groups, and divide them. And it went through to silence any dissent against the Tory government. And at the time, they were pushing through the NHS bill, the bedroom tax, the change to the welfare, many, many other things. And what they wanted to do is gag any dissent. They wanted to kick people, kick them hard, and make sure they didn't and they weren't able to resist. So comrades, I've just been listening to Sarah discussing criminalisation. I'm telling you what this bill seeks to do. It seeks to criminalise dissent. It means they're going to continue with the austerity measures like we've never seen before. They're going to continue to promote apprenticeships at 3 million at £2 an hour. They're going to continue to cut the public sector jobs to the bone if they're not already to the bone. And they're going to continue with austere measures which they find very attractive indeed. But they want no dissent. There isn't any room for anybody to speak out against this government. This is pretty serious stuff. This bill isn't about armbands on picket lines, and it isn't really about the certification officer. It's about dissent and ensuring that they can continue with the Gagging Bill Part 2. What will happen with the Gagging Bill Part 3 once this, or if this gets through the Commons? But compared to the Trade Union Bill, if I can just look at it part by part. As I've mentioned, it's not about armbands and picket lines, but there is clauses in the bill which state that if you're on a picket line, there must be an authorised supervisor, and that supervisor must have an armband on, and he must have a letter of authorisation to say, I'm the responsible picket line supervisor. And he must be willing to give that to any reasonable person who asks to see it. This is trade union law. So here we've got these picket lines. Who on earth wants to put an armband on? They might as well put a t-shirt on with Blacklist Me. And on the back, a target. I mean, listen, if you're on the picket line and somebody says, excuse me, sir, can I see your letter of authorisation? I mean, how pathetic is this? Well, that's the sort of stuff we've got within the trade union law, the trade union bill, on the face of the bill. We've got the issue of thresholds. Now, I challenged Sajid David yesterday because he said how transparent these thresholds are and what's right and democratic about them. And I just simply said, if you apply the same thresholds to yourself at the election, would you be a member of Parliament now? And he couldn't answer it. The reality is, of course, he wouldn't be. But it's all right for the Tories, but it's not all right for the trade unions. They're looking at agency workers. The current legislation on agency workers means that agency workers cannot be drafted into work in a workplace where there's a current dispute. That legislation will be withdrawn. And I'll tell you what will happen. You'll get the job centre sending young people to get a bus to factories, to shop floors, to replace people who's on strike. And if they refuse to do so, they'll suffer the consequences. And that'll be sanctioned. So you're going to have to be a lot of young people who will be facing this sort of difficulty. And some of the greatest of consequences if they refuse. In this legislation, just one part of the jigsaw. You put in the other pieces that were brought in last year in the last parliamentary term, and what they're looking to bring in the next 5 years. And the reality is there'll be no dissent allowed in this country. We're looking at facility time. We're looking at the check-off system. I mean, these are absolutely horrendous situations facing trade unions. Mark Sawatka was here before. They've had a terrible time in the last 2 or 3 years with regard to the check-off system and with regard to facility time. And what the government are doing, it's the first time it's ever happened, by the way, the government are going to tell companies, organisations, whether or not people have had enough facility time, or whether they can have more facility time, or whether they can have less facility time. It's a government which will be allowed to interfere in business and in trade unions. And of course what they're looking to do is strangle the trade union movement of all types of finance. I mentioned the certification officer before. Do you know what this new bill proposals mean? The certification officer can come into any trade union he wants. He can then bring his troops in to investigate something which could be anonymous. And then they could be there for weeks, if not months on end, and find absolutely nothing. And then they give the trade union movement a bill for doing so. It's called, comrades, the trade union tax. This is the sort of thing. But when I mentioned before, it's not just about trade unions. It's about the breaches of the European Court of Human Rights. It's about ensuring that collective bargaining and freedom of association cannot flourish in any way, shape or form. It breaches lots and lots of European legislation, but the thing is that it cannot be appealed unless it's enacted. Once it's enacted, then that can be appealed, but the appeals in the European courts often last between 3 and 6 years. They want these measures in place as soon as they can to fend off any resistance. So we've got the huge task on our hands. We've got the issue regarding party funding. And I'll tell you what it means for the Labour Party. It means that they'll struggle to survive financially because of the opt-in provisions within the new proposals. So we look at the overall package, comrades, and it's not very good. But I'll tell you, I've just had word the day that I'll be on the committee, at committee stage and report stage, so I'm looking forward to that. But this will not be won at the corridors of power in Parliament. There isn't any way that that's... You should have seen some of the Tories yesterday getting up saying, I'm a proud trade union member. Well, we respect the trade. The bollocks to the Tories that do not support the trade union movement in any way, shape or form. We've got a great opportunity with the election of Jeremy Corbyn as the new leader of the party. We must collectively come together. People have mentioned the left, often fragmented. In fact, not often, always. We need to come together. We'll not get another opportunity like this, man. I'm telling you, we'll not get another opportunity like this. And we might not get everything we want. But as a movement, we've got to come together. Forget the differences we might have. And look for glory in the future with a new leadership, with a new direction, with the policies that I've been shouting for since I was 15 years of age. So remember, these are the good days. Remember, it'll be difficult very early on for Jeremy and his team. We need to get together. We need to resist the trade union bill, resist austerity, resist the measures which the Tories have put through Parliament for many, many years. And if we do that, who knows where we could be at the election in 2020. Thank you.
Thanks to Ian for such a really inspiring contribution.